So I was looking at UFC 297, guys, because I was about to start my tape study for this card that takes place next weekend, and it's a big old piece of shit card. This card is absolutely terrible. It's disgusting. It's an abomination to the human race. I mean, are you serious, Dana? Really? This is what you're gonna treat the Canadians after the last card? UFC 289. Amanda Nunes. Yes, the co-main event was Charles Oliveira versus Benio Dariush. But besides that co-main event, UFC 289 was a big old piece of shit. This card is atrocious. I was going to start my tape study, and when I started looking at some of these matchups, and I knew that UFC 297 wasn't that great, but when I actually went to look at the card and look at some of these matchups, I could not believe how terrible this card really is. Like, these matchups are horrific. Malcolm Gordon, he's coming off a knockout loss. Jimmy Flick also mid. Both these guys have tons of losses. This fight is horrible too, but I mean, it's a prelim fight, so it's whatever. Look at this man's forehead. What the heck is that? Bruh. Oh my god, this card is terrible. I might not even watch it. And I know some of you guys are going to say, oh, based, the main card was going to be great. Jan Blachowicz versus Alexander Rakic fell through because Jan got injured. Oh, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes was such a banger because Dominic Reyes is on this crazy win streak. Yeah, those fights were going to be good. I mean, they're all right. I mean, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominic Reyes was just going to be a pure destruction of Dominic Reyes because we all know Dominic Reyes is absolutely washed and has no chin. Probably one of the worst, if not the worst chin currently in the UFC. And then Jan Blachowicz versus Alexander Rakic was going to be a good matchup, but it's not a banger. You know what I'm saying? Jan Blachowicz is clearly not in his prime anymore. This guy's getting old. He looks slower against Alex Pereira. Also looked kind of slow against Magomed Ankalaev. Alexander Rakic is coming off an injury. We've seen that first fight. It wasn't this exciting bout. So yeah, I mean, it was going to be a decent fight for UFC 297, but it wasn't going to make the card go from good to amazing. Now it goes from being a bad card to being an abomination, and that's pretty much what UFC 297 is, guys. This card is atrocious. Dana White needs to contact the Canadian Prime Minister or the President. I don't give a fuck. I don't know anything about Canadian politics. And he needs to apologize for this because this is an atrocity to humanity. To have Neil Magny as a feature bout of a main card pay-per-view? Are you serious? No disrespect to the guy, but Neil Magny, the most washed fighter in the welterweight division, the guy the UFC uses to promote their prospects, to give an easy highlight reel to their new prospects, Neil Magny, the Haitian sensation. Are you serious, Dana? This card is terrible. Like, why are you stacking UFC 299, but then you leave UFC 297 like a piece of dirt? Like, it's horrible. Like, you just forgot that UFC 297 was happening. I mean, at least make this a fight night. I mean, at least cancel Walker versus Ankalaev. Put it at UFC 297. Put Manel Cap at least on the pay-per-view, so at least he gets more spotlight instead of putting him at UFC Fight Night. Because if you didn't have any fights for UFC 297, don't come out with this atrocious card. I mean, let's look at the co-main event. Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. there's not a single person on planet Earth, not even Raquel Pennington's family, not even Maya Bueno Silva's family, that is actually genuinely excited for this matchup. Most people don't even know. Most MMA fans have never even seen a Raquel Pennington fight. Most MMA fans just know Maya Bueno Silva from that Holly Holmes fight, and that's a fact. You know what I'm saying? Nobody gives a crap about this co-main event. I don't even care who wins, and I'm not gonna do tape study for this atrocious card. I'm just gonna be doing a prediction video for the main event, the only fight that people truly care about. And even the main event, I mean, it's a great matchup. It's a great stylistic matchup. There's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of unknowns when it comes to this Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis fight, because both of these guys have been massive underdogs in their last fight. But I mean, in terms of big names, I mean, it's not a huge main event whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? I think it's very intriguing for the hardcore MMA fan, but for a casual MMA fan, Sean Strickland, like, yeah, they know who Sean Strickland is because he just beat Israel Adesanya. But most casuals, they don't know who Dricus is. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to see Dricus on the pay-per-view. They're not going to be like, oh, man, I'm curious about that guy. I think I'm going to buy the pay-per-view. No, they don't give a fuck. You know? This card is atrocious. And like, yes, like I said, the main event is good, but this is a card that would actually need a lot of help, because Sean Strickland and Dricus, they're not huge superstars, at least not yet. And then you give them this kind of card. You know what I'm saying? And I almost feel like the UFC are setting them up so they could be like, oh, look how Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, look how that card did. Yeah, we need Israel Adesanya back in the title picture. Let's give this guy a title shot again. Because Sean Strickland, man, he just doesn't sell pay-per-views, and neither does Dricus. Like, bro, that's not even fair. Like, I mean, look at this horrendous card. Like, the card is so terrible that it actually makes me less excited for Sean Strickland versus Dricus, which is which is an incredible fight. This card is atrocious. It is offensive. It is everything we don't want as an MMA fan. And yeah, you guys are gonna say, but look at UFC 299, base. Look at UFC 298. Yes, those cards are great. But come on, man. Like, Sean Strickland is his first title defense. Give him a good card. You know what I'm saying? And then you send him to Canada, one of the worst countries on planet Earth. I'm just kidding. I don't have anything against Canadians, but you're going to send him to Canada and you're going to give him this type of card. Like, you know what? The UFC knows what they're doing, because only Canadians would accept this kind of card. Because if you put this card in the United States, there would be riots. You thought the BLM riots were terrible? Well, the riots after seeing Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva as a co-main event of a pay-per-view, Dana, you need to come out and make some fight announcements for UFC 297. I don't care that it's a week away, because this card is horrendous. Yes, there's like two good fights. I mean, I like Mike Malott, but I'm not excited to see him fight a Wash Neil Magny. I mean, it's going to be a good, maybe a finish, a Mike Malott domination. And besides the main event, the other fight that's pretty exciting, I mean, not exciting, but it's a good matchup in the featherweight division, is Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. That's a great fight. You know what I'm saying? It's a great fight, but it's not like a banger of the night. You know what I'm saying? It's not a fight that like, oh, I'm going to buy the car now because Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. Whoa. I mean, yeah, as a hardcore fan, like, I'm excited to watch it, but this card is horrendous. It's terrible. I mean, let me look at UFC. Is UFC 289, was that better? Yeah, I think UFC 289 was better. I mean, we had, okay, the main event was horrible, but I mean, it's Amanda Nunes, so at least that sells. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush was a very anticipated matchup. Mike Malott, I mean, Adam Fugit, better than, I mean, no, I don't know if he's better than Neil Magny, but, you know, okay, whatever. The future bout isn't anything crazy. I get it. Mike Malott is a Canadian, and you have to showcase him on the main card of a pay-per-view if you're going to Canada. I completely get that. Danny Gay versus Nate Landwehr, like, that was an interesting matchup. Maybe it didn't deliver. I mean, it was still an entertaining bout. Mark Andre, I mean, this was a mid-off. It was an okay fight. I mean, it was entertaining. Chris Curtis versus Mavov. Okay. I mean, it's pretty similar to the one now. I mean, no, actually, I think the one now is pretty terrible. I think the card that we're getting next weekend is worse. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm an asshole. No, guys, this card is terrible. Are you guys gonna buy the pay-per-view? I'm very curious. This is disgusting. Like, wow. I had not been paying attention to UFC 297. I mean, I knew that some fights had fallen off, but I still thought, okay, it's probably gonna be like a okay card. Guys, this card is terrible, and I don't see enough people talking about how bad this card really is. And I think it's maybe because we've been so excited and we've been looking forward to Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, which, you know, it's a great matchup, but it's not a matchup that can carry an entire pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? This was a card that needed a lot of help, and like they're stacking UFC 299 to the gills, and then they leave UFC 297 stranded in the desert with Sean Strickland and Dricus and Morsor Evloev and Arnold Allen, which are pretty good matchups. And, you know, but like Raquel Pennington, like it would have been maybe a good idea to put a Yang Wei Li versus Yang Yaonan as a co-main event. Or, I mean, there's some match. Like I said, I mean, they could have just moved Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker to UFC 297 and Manel Cap and just cancel that fight. I don't know, or I don't know, but this card is atrocious, man. Like the fact that the UFC, they shouldn't even promote this because it's that offensive. It's that terrible, and it should be half off. There's no way they could be charging $85 for this type of pay-per-view. It's absolutely offensive. It's terrible, guys. But I just wanted to discuss this because, like I said, I was about to start my tape study for all these fights. I am not going to do that, guys. I mean, I'm going to be putting out my picks probably sometime next week, but it's not going to be a full video. It's not going to be a 30 or 20-minute video because this card does not deserve my time. It doesn't deserve me actually doing some tape study. And yeah, there's some matchups here that I don't even give a crap about. You know what I'm saying? Like Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick, two mid fighters. Malcolm Gordon is always losing, always getting finished. I don't care. Jimmy Flick is also mid. I don't care who wins. Like, whatever. Like, this girl is mid too. She always gets finished in the first round. And then this girl just fought Tracy Cortez. Yeah, and she lost. I mean, I think it was a close decision. I mean, it was a good scrap, but this is not a great card whatsoever. And like I said, I feel bad for you Canadians. If you guys are Canadians, anybody that watches me is from Canadian. If you're going to pay for this card, man, get a refund. Get a refund. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your time. Even as someone who, am I going to buy this pay-per-view? It's horrendous. But I guess I am. I guess I am because I want to see Sean Strickland versus Dricus, but I might start watching on the main card. I'm not going to watch the prelims. I don't care how much of a hardcore fan I am. This card is just atrocious, man. It's a terrible. Anyway, that is my rant for UFC 297, guys. I had not noticed how bad UFC 297 really is. And like I said, I'm not going to be doing a full card prediction for this card because it's not worth my time and it's not worth your time either. And I don't want to waste your time. So anyway, guys, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.